In our final bit of, news and politics update, that we have some new woke capitalism
Hmm.
news, and that,
A
of
new thing
course,
every day.
a new thing every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a woke capitalism update like what every week, and this one has kind of been stretched out over this month. But what I am speaking of course, is the uproar in Georgia over the new voting restriction, which of course are pretty bad. But this time, we now have a slew of corporations that are also opposing Georgia's new voting restriction laws. Those include, of course, Coca-Cola, Delta. I think Major League Baseball has gotten involved. And then, of course, recently, like hundreds of corporations and CEOs and other kind of C-level executives took out a two-page spread in the New York Times. We stand for democracy. This, again, is all of our corporate friends who oppose the new voting restrictions in Georgia. And now, I don't know if you have been following this closely, but sort of predictably, Republicans have now come out swinging to say, well, now we don't like corporations. A
Hmm.
few Republicans.
Right.
And this is pretty classic. I mean, we had talked a few episodes ago about Marco Rubio sort of
Right.
tepidly offering support for the Amazon union because apparently Amazon was like getting too woke. A similar thing is happening here where a handful of Republicans are now saying like, well, we should really think about maybe raising taxes on
Right.
corporations if they're going to go down the woke path. And we do talk about this on the show quite a lot, but I'm interested. I mean, do you think the Republicans are actually serious this time? I just can't see any Republican, like, no matter how populist they claim to be,
Yeah.
actually slashing corporate taxes.
Yeah. I mean, I think what gives it all away is that with Biden's infrastructure bill, which really includes a very measly tax increase on corporations, Republicans are not willing to vote for it. Not one Republican is willing to, on the basis of these tax increases.
Right.
I mean, one thing that was kind of interesting, the article gets into, is like on a very local level, certain Republicans claiming they're considering eliminating certain specific tax breaks in certain industries. I mean, who knows if that will happen? But I mean, this is not going to be a deep or long term trend in the Republican Party. But I mean, I think what's dangerous about it is that this does allow them to posture as anti-corporate, and I think it's a very bad sign if the left is being outflanked by the GOP on attacking corporations. And I think it's just not a good look if it looks like they're fighting to end corporate tax breaks and the left is focused somewhere else. And I think, like these kind of impressions people get politically are often not accurate or fair.
Right.
But I think the danger here is that, like, oh, the left is on the side of corporations being woke. Meanwhile, the right is calling them out for
Mm-hmm.
maybe the average person that's not going to follow it that closely. And I think those impressions, even if they're false and not fair, can be very powerful. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the longer they have to posture like this, it's just more dangerous for us, and I don't know what that's going to portend for the future, and I think later Matt will kind of bring in some of this, like what that's going to portend for our ability to win back or win these voters that we need to win eventually. If in their mindset, they're like, well, at least the Republicans are like play fighting with corporations a little bit. Meanwhile, the left is like loving the woke
Mm-hmm.
corporations. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it could be dangerous because they're just buying time where they get to posture and aren't having to deal with like what their actual policies with corporations are.
Yeah, and I think something that also muddies the waters is so first of all, you have somebody like Bernie Sanders, and I don't think that at this point anybody is going to convince voters that Bernie Sanders like is into woke corporations. But there are Democrats who are actually rushing
Yeah.
to embrace the woke corporations, and I think that is something that is extremely troubling to
Right.
me. I
And of
mean,
course, and that's what's going to get out on CNN and
right,
MSN, you know what I mean? And
right,
that's what's going to, I think, frame this impression from the average voter that it's like, yeah, I mean,
hmm right,
well, we know Democrats are a corporate power, but it's going to be associated now. No, it's the far left that, this is
hmm
their goal,
hmm
is is woke capitalism.
Right. Yeah. So there's the danger of this kind of, mischaracterization of the left, as you're saying. But you had sent me an article from the Washington Post about Joe Biden meeting with Goldman Sachs, Bank of America leaders, and other business leaders, literally after the Georgia corporate turn, or the Georgia corporate outcry over the new voting restrictions. Joe Biden and other Democrats literally see this moment as an opportunity to be like, hey, well, like, what if we worked with you? What if we worked with you guys, corporations, And, Stacey Abrams, of course, deserves credit for her organizing in Georgia and, fighting for voting rights. But she has been very friendly, of course, to these corporations that are coming out against the voting restrictions, and she has not. She talks a lot about democracy, but I have not heard her say a word about, how unchecked corporate power is also undermining democracy. I mean, I haven't, Stacey Abrams had a recent op-ed in USA Today. Let me read a quote from there. So she is talking about people calling for boycotts of Georgia companies. And she says, she rejects those. And she says, bring your business to Georgia. And if you're already here, stay and fight, stay and vote. I appreciate the public positions taken by MLB, Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, and hundreds of other companies. Even more can be done to help stop these bills or raise awareness. And then she goes on to, go through a laundry list of what corporations can do to raise awareness and kind of fight the spread of these anti-democratic bills. And to be clear, these bills are anti-democratic. However, so is Citizens United. So I don't like that the conversation seems to have coalesced, or I don't like that a group of Democrats have coalesced around flexing corporate power to, advance an ostensibly democratic agenda.
Right. Yeah. And of course, like, this is totally to be expected from Biden, that he would take this opportunity I think he would be meeting with these corporations anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, we know someone like Bernie is a rare breed who's going to be very clear on polarizing the situation and being like, I'm sure Bernie, if he had to choose between corporations being for or against the bill, he's glad they're against it, but he's clear on, like, my base that I want to organize to fight for voting rights is not corporations. They're not really, we're not going to be on the same team on this. But he's not common. I hope there's more people like him. But again, it's just troubling that this is now going to be like the impression of this is what the left is. This is who they're aligned with. And in that article, the Washington Post one, I mean, one thing that was just very sad to just show you, like, what a fuck situation we're in, is the fact that the corporate tax rate before the Trump tax cuts was 35%. He lowered it to 21, and now Biden's talking about going to 28. So we're not even catching up to where we were. And most of the corporations recognize this, and they're like, well, we prefer not to have the tax cuts, but, like, it's fine. Like, we know, like, we don't need to get too upset about it. Like, and it's like a net win. I mean, it's literally one step forward, two step backwards, and they recognize it as a net gain. And it's just very sad. Like, and of course Biden gets the credit of, oh, he's raising taxes on the rich again, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wow, we've literally went halfway back to where we were under Obama. That's where we are.
Right. I want to wrap that up by reading a Barney Frank quote that appears in that article. I thought this was particularly damning. So he says, the business community, responsible elements of the business community, have figured out it's in their interest to help diffuse angry populism. They're not afraid of Joe Biden. Biden does not say they're bad people, and that's a large part of it. But they're also not as afraid of what Democrats will do. They're much more afraid of the Republicans. And just to echo what you said, I think that's very sad. I mean, if the Democratic Party is going to be any kind of party for working people at all, corporations need to be terrified of them.
Right.